Hi, friends. Thank you for joining me today for this special broadcast. I'm joined today by my friend Jeff Dornick. He is the founder of GK Podcast Network. And folks, if you've been following Jeff and his work, then you already know this. This thing has exploded in growth. But what I'm most excited about, it has exploded in relevance, in pulling together people of like mind, and I'm talking about folks who understand the times that we live in and the things that need to be done today. Those are the kind of people that we need right now to step up into this gap, this huge gap. The Lord is calling people. Jeff, I thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I always enjoy our talks, and I always enjoy chatting and stuff, and so I'm glad I could come back on.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing, right out of the gate, Jeff, I think we should probably discuss this conference that you've got coming up this Saturday, the 18th, April the 18th. And it's going to be a fantastic conference. And I'll just hand it off to you and let you talk about it.
Yeah, so basically, so I've been working for the last few weeks on co-founding an organization called the American Conservative Movement, and that's with J.D. Rucker, who is the editor-in-chief over at Knock Report, and he's also he was the founder of the Federalist Party as well. We've got Pastor Ken Peters from the Church of Planned Parenthood, and then Pastor Sam Jones. And basically, we started this organization, and our goal is to unify conservatives around constitutional values and preserve our rights in light of this coronavirus crisis that we're going through, where we're seeing the government overstepping its bounds, passing unconstitutional laws, taking away our rights. And so what our goal is, we want to try to educate people on what does the Constitution say, what is legal for the government to do, what is it legal, what is it illegal for the government to do, and then also how do we move forward to actually protect and preserve our rights. So our first event and first thing that we're going to be doing is coming up, like you were saying, on April 18th. And we're putting on the Saving America Conference. And it's going to be streamed online on American Conservative Movement's Facebook page. And we got a great lineup of speakers. And now the thing to remember about this is that the four of us who co-founded ACM, we're all believers. We're all Christians. And we were very intentional about that. But the events that we're putting on and the organization itself is not necessarily a Christian event. It's a conservative event. So we're going to be having both Christians and non-Christians, but we do want to make sure that Christians are very well represented, because especially dealing with a lot of the freedom of religion and the right to peaceably assemble and things like that. And then also, too, is just because we are Christians, we want to make sure that we are having our voices heard as well. So like our lineup that we've got coming up for this conference is we've got like Joshua Firestein, Pastor Greg Locke. We got Mindy Robinson, who's running for Congress in Nevada. We've got Michael Johns, the co-founder of the Tea Party. I'll be speaking. JD, Ken, Sam, you're going to be speaking as well. We've got Buzz Patterson, who's running for Congress right now. Jerry Wayne is the one who went up against Joe Biden about the quote-unquote AR-14s. We've got Washington State Representative Matt Shea. We've got Trevor Loudon. We've got a great lineup of speakers, but the whole point is just to unify around conservative values and get people educated on what are our rights, what does it mean, and basically help them to be able to identify when their rights are being taken away.
Yes. Yeah, that's a fantastic lineup, Jeff, and you are to be congratulated, you and Sam and Pastor Ken and JD for really receiving this idea, understanding, seeing what you had received and say, hey, this is an opportunity. Because right now there is a leadership void in the Christian community. There's a leadership void, I think, in the patriot constitutionalist movement. And folks, those things aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, I would argue that we should be both. Christians should be both. Now, our allegiance is to the Lord, obviously, but he bequeathed us, this nation, a constitutional republic, which is, in my opinion, and in the view of many others, the best possible system of governance that elevates God, that allows for his laws to govern. And that's something that we need to go very, very quickly while, what's the saying, Jeff? While the iron is hot.
Yep.
While we're in the midst of this, insanity, we need to strike now. And so we're looking for people that'll come alongside of us. I was just on the website this morning, Jeff, And there is a form there where people can actually join and support, isn't there?
Yep. Yeah. So you can actually go to AmericanConservativeMovement.com. Got a form. You can fill out your name, email, that sort of thing. And that way you can be in the loop on some of the things that we're going to be unveiling. We've got a lot of plans, a lot of big ideas. We're trying to maneuver as best as we can with this coronavirus and the lockdowns and like all that kind of stuff. We've already had like several thousand people already signing up. We're really excited about what's coming for the future. But the goal, again, with this is to preserve freedom and liberty. And the one thing I want to say too about how you were saying, like the being patriotic and being a Christian are not, it's something that we can be doing both of. I think it's important to understand, like when we're looking at something like Romans 13, which a lot of people cite in saying we should just submit to government no matter what they say. One of the things we have to look at is what is the context of Romans 13? They were under essentially a dictatorship. They were under an emperor. They didn't have a voice. So why would God be telling the early church to rise up and have a voice when they had no say? Here in America, we have the Constitution that gives us certain rights. The Constitution also limits the government. So when the government is supposed to be set up by the people for the people, that means that we are the government. That means that we do have a say in what laws are created and what laws are not created and that sort of thing. And so when we see the government disobeying the law, and by the law, I'm referring to the Constitution because that's the ultimate law that we have here in the United States. That's where since we are the government, we need to rise up and we need to make sure that we're keeping in check those that we elected into office in order to keep them preserving our constitutional rights and freedoms.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Jeff. And the fact that so many people today misquote, misunderstand, misinterpret Romans chapter 13 is proof positive that the rotten fruit of biblical illiteracy has come home to roost in the American church. I could do a history on it. I'm not going to. I would refer you to my website, thetransformingword.com, and you can find all of those posts. But that is a recent, when I mean recent, within the last 100 years or so, understanding of Romans 13. It wasn't the prevailing thought of the church that Romans 13 means what it does today. The dumbing down of Christians has come home to roost, and we're seeing that rotten fruit. Jeff, you're also doing some other programming, and so I want to call attention to that too, as well as a new show that's starting tomorrow on the GK Podcast Network. But you're also doing a show with John Hinton, American Held Hostage, I believe is the name of the show. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the American Held Hostage podcast, John. So basically, a couple of weeks ago, I had John on my podcast, Conversations with Jeff. And we really hit it off. We went for like an hour and a half, to pretty much an agreement on a lot of the main principled issues. And so he had approached me and said, well, would you want to do like co-host a show on the GK, which is basically we can go every morning and it'll be a daily news roundup. And so basically what we do every morning is John and I, we hop on Facebook Live and we just literally go through the headlines and then discuss it from a conservative and Christian perspective. And it's gotten a lot of, really good response. I've really enjoyed doing it. It's also helping me to be able to, make sure that I'm keeping up on what's going on out in the world and being able to articulate, conservative, viewpoints in response to what we're seeing, especially with, again, some decisions that, either the federal government's making, the local governments, our rights being taken away, things like that. And so it's been a lot of fun. We're going every morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook. And it's just a blast kind of going through the news and discussing it and that sort of thing. I think we need more of that.
Yeah, we absolutely do. It's a place that folks that you can go and hear true news, real news, and then a Christian perspective on that. Boy, do we need that today. So I would encourage you to catch that. But you can go to the GK Podcast Network and check out all of those shows, folks. And I would encourage you to do that. Now, we're launching a new program tomorrow on the GK Podcast Network, and it is called Ask Dr. Mike. Why don't you tell us about that one?
Yeah, well, I thought it would be a lot of fun to, where you and I we can sit down on a show And the audience can actually submit questions ahead of time. And those questions are emailed to gatekeepersonline@gmail.com. And then I ask them, I ask those questions to you live on air. And we can kind of pick your brain on whether it's theology, history, politics, whatever it might be. And I think it's just a fun way to have a good Q&A, but also we're getting people's questions answered. Because I feel like today, one of the biggest problems that we're seeing is a lot of the evangelical leaders, they're not touching the controversial issues. They're not touching a lot of the questions that people actually have. They're just pushing forth their talking points. And so this is an opportunity where people can ask any question they might have, and then we can ask you, and we're gonna do that once a month, and just kind of give people a chance to accumulate their questions, whether they're studying the Bible, something they hear in church, something they see in the news, whatever it might be. And it's just kind of like a fun new addition to the podcast network. But I'm really glad to be, having you on there as well. And, we can kind of converse a bit, go back and forth, and have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the important thing, folks. We want this to be informative. We want it to be educational. We're not trying to be controversial. We're just going to ask or answer questions as they come. Now, of course, when you give an opinion or you answer a question, you can't escape your own biases. So I'll tell you that right up front. Jeff has his biases. I have my biases. I'm going to answer things according to what I think the correct response should be. And we may have some conversation about that. And what I'm looking forward to, Jeff, is I'm looking forward to people that send us follow-up questions that says, thanks for answering that, but now what about this? And to begin to engage people, and then they'll see this program as an opportunity to have that ongoing conversation on biblical topics that matter. Folks, I know from being a pastor and a Bible teacher and a conference speaker, people have lots of questions out there and they don't know where to turn to get them answered. Well, this is one opportunity for you to do that. Ask Dr. Mike. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday, second Tuesday of every month. Ask Dr. Mike on the GK Podcast Network. So write that down in your calendars, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. I believe that's 11 a.m. Pacific Time, Jeff, isn't it?
Yep, that's correct, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's get back before we folks, thanks for joining us, first of all, again. But this was just a quick hitter. Jeff and I wanted to do something to promote the conference coming up Saturday, and that's why we've jumped on here. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for sharing this information in your friend groups on whatever platform you're in. We appreciate that. What is the schedule for Saturday the 18th and this conference?
Yeah, sure. So here, let me pull it up, just because we've got a great lineup, but then also some of the topics we're going to be talking about are going to be really, really cool. So we're starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we are so we're starting out with J.D. Rucker's going to start out, and he's going to really give us like an introduction to the ACM, what we're trying to do with the American conservative movement, things like that. And then we've got Trevor Loudon, who's coming up right after him, and he's really going to break down the leftist infiltration into our country, which I can't think of anybody better, because he's one of the foremost experts on Marxism, cultural Marxism, leftism, all that kind of stuff. He's going to be great. We've got Jerry Wayne coming after that, talking about the Second Amendment, which again, great expert on that sort of thing as well. We've got Sam Jones talking about the right to peaceably assemble, which is one of the biggest attacks we're seeing right now in our country. We've got, you'll be coming up at 12 o'clock Pacific time, talking about the evils of leftism. Ken Peters coming on 12:30, talking about abortion. Greg Locke, I believe we're having him talk about free speech and censorship and that sort of thing. We're going to have some panels going on. We've got Michael Johns talking about grassroots conservatism, which, again, he's one of the co-founders of the Tea Party. So, if anybody knows that, he knows that. We've got Buzz Patterson, Matt Shea, Mindy Robinson is going to talk about election integrity, especially because of what she's seeing in the state of Nevada, where pretty much anybody can register to vote. You don't need an ID. You don't even have to be able to verify who you are. Literally, they'll send you a mail-in ballot, and then you can send it in. And it's like, how in the world is this okay? We're, again, another panel going on. Joshua Firestein's going to close things out from the talks. Got a panel with all the ACM founders, and then I'm going to be closing it out at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So it's going to be a long day, a lot of information, and basically a talk every half hour. But it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of information. You're probably going to want to watch it multiple times. We'll save the recordings and we'll post them on YouTube afterwards. And it's going to be a blast.
Hey, and folks, listen, it's free. Where are you going to get a deal like that? It's free. You can tune in, be encouraged. I think one of the great things about this, Jeff, is that people are going to find out they're not alone. Because a lot of folks, they're just kind of throwing up their hands saying, well, what can we do about what's going on? I don't know anybody else. Well, guess what? You're going to be introduced to a whole bunch of folks that share the same views that you do. And we want to encourage you to get in the fight. You don't have to stand on the sidelines. You can get involved in this fight for our nation and for, coming from my perspective, Jeff, for our God.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I wanted to say too is, like, as I was talking with everybody that we're bringing on to speak, again, both pastors and Christians, as well as, politicians and conservative commentators and things like that, the common theme that I keep hearing from everybody is that it seems like the left is in lockstep with each other. They're all repeating the exact same talking points. They're all promoting each other. They're all working in, again, in lockstep. Conservatives, it seems like, for the most part, are very splintered off, and everybody has their own individual little website or podcast or show or whatever it might be. We're all splintered off. And I think that we need a unifying organization that can bring everybody together. And that's why a lot of the people that we were able to bring on, they were immediately like, yeah, let's do this, because there hasn't been a unifying organization really since the Tea Party. And that only lasted a short period of time. And so I think that that's something that we really need if we are going to be pushing these conservative values in our country.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. Now, one thing I do want to say, folks, you should understand this already. If you watched the rise of the Tea Party and the impact that it had, because it had a tremendous impact, but they also received a tremendous amount of aggressive pushback. They were labeled all sorts of, well, they were, quite frankly, lied about throughout the media, politicians that the Tea Party opposed. They were lied about, accusations, unfounded, unproven. In fact, they were just flat out false, were hurled at them. We should expect no less, Jeff. When we rise up and come against the evil in our land, leftism, Marxism, communism, when we come against this evil, they're going to come after us, aren't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We see that happening within Christianity, within the church. A lot of evangelical leaders, they do the exact same things. And then we see it in politics. There is a direct parallel that we're seeing that's happening within the church and within the political world. And that's why I kind of have a specifically towards Christians, whereas the ASCM is geared, more towards the secular audience and everybody altogether in general. And so it's one of those things where we're really fighting the same battle, just in two different fields. And it's, we have to be prepared. I've already experienced it within the Christian world, so I don't expect any less from the secular world as well. But if we're gonna win this battle, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be pushing back. It's gonna be false accusations. But then again, Jesus talked about that, and he warned his disciples and warned the apostles about that. That there's gonna be a lot of false accusations and a lot of personal attacks and persecution and things like that. But the thing is that we have the truth on our side. We just keep pushing forward. If we actually want to save our country, it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be tough, and we got to keep pushing forward. That's
right. So to be forewarned is to be forearmed, folks. We know what's coming down the pipe. We're not naive about this at all. But we're going to push forward anyway, because we do not fear anything that lives and breathes on the face of this earth. We will fear our God only. And we can come together with other conservatives and patriots that understand the times in which we live and know what needs to be done, the sons of Issachar. Folks, we can do this. I encourage you to get involved. You can go to the American Conservative Movement website, sign up to join. Tune in on Saturday. Thank you, Kathy. You are right on top of it. The AmericanConservativeMovement.com. Sign up. Let Jeff and others know that you are supporting what they're doing. Jeff, I appreciate you joining me today. thank you for the work that you're doing, the effort that you're expending, the faithfulness you have for our Lord. It does not go unnoticed.
I appreciate that, and I think that it's just one of those things where I finally got to the point, and especially with like the GK and that sort of thing, where I was just like, why not? Like, what's stopping me? And I think that we need more people that are willing to actually step up and just do something. You know, it doesn't matter. Just put out a blog, write a podcast. You just because you're not one of the elites, just because you're not a politician or you're not a pastor, doesn't mean that you don't have a voice. And I think that a lot of the elites have reinforced to the lay people that leave it to the experts. And I think at a certain point, obviously you should be researched and studied and actually know what you're talking about. But at the same time, we need more voices if we're going to be able to keep the authorities and the elite in check, because clearly they're running out of control. They're overstepping their bounds, both scripturally and constitutionally. And so just step up and do something, anything. And if you don't want to be in front of the camera, you know, maybe you write a blog, maybe you just support an organization that's actually trying to do something. And there's plenty of them out there that are doing it. I'm not just saying it's just ours, but just, you know, do something as opposed to just sitting back and just letting the big dogs actually do it all, because in all reality, they're leading both the church and the country down the wrong path.
Amen, Jeff. And we're in the mess we're in, folks, because too many people have stepped back and have not been involved. Let's be involved. Let's be part of charting the course, the next step in our country. Let's take some pride in America again, and let's push it in the right direction. How about if we do that, folks? Thanks for joining us today. Thank you for sharing this with your friends, and thank you for getting involved in the American conservative movement. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.